back and extremely excited and relieved that the fantasy basketball season is over. But we first have something very important to discuss because I am joined by the new reigning champion of the Angle Dynasty League, the commissioner of the San Miguel Beermen. Mitchell, how are you today, dude? How's it feel to be a champion of the world of Angle Fantasy Basketball?
Man, it feels great. Started from the bottom. Now we're here. It was a crazy journey from the bottom to the top, and I'm glad to really kind of discuss a little bit more of what that process looked like, and especially some of the transactions along the way that led to that success. Hint, hint, the big Victor Wembanyama trade. But yeah, man, I'm really excited just to talk about this league. This is the best league in the world here that we host at Angle. And we love pushing out content like that. And we love shouting out all of our league members, making sure they get their share of the pie in terms of the love that they put into this league, because honestly, we couldn't do it without you guys. So really excited to do this new type of episode for you all in this award show.
Yeah, so as Mitchell alluded to, we have a new episode we're doing for the league today, which is an award show. So soon we are going to tell you what the various awards are. But before we get into that, just wanted to update you guys on what Angle is going to be coming out with soon. We are going to have a Dynasty Rank update that'll be free to the public towards the end of this month. Most likely is when that will come out. We are going to be waiting for Braxton, who wasn't able to join us today, to get back from an international trip that he's going on. So safe travels to him. But keep an eye on our website, www.anglefantasybasketball.com. So we have made improvements to the website. We are reinvesting our Patreon back into improving the product for you guys, which is always our plan. So if you're interested in supporting us, getting additional bonus content, specialized Dynasty rank updates, patreon.com/anglefantasybasketball. And soon, Mitchell and I will also start coming out with some more rookie content for you guys, because draft season's just around the corner. We get a little break after the end of the fantasy season. I think most of everyone's leagues have finished, so hopefully the season treated you well. But we only get about a month or two off until we start getting into the draft cycle, the combine, the draft itself, and then good old summer league. So be on the lookout for that on our Twitter, our website. You know where to go. It's all going to be coming to you very soon. But let's go ahead and get started on our award show, Mitchell. So really quickly, if you're not familiar with this league, the Angle Dynasty League, we only host one league. We keep it exclusive, and we publicize the crap out of it. So this is a 30-team real salary dynasty league. Very fun league, very active managers. All of the team names are named after any professional basketball organization, whether it's still in existence or extinct, and whether it's a male or female team. So you're going to hear some crazy team names, most likely, that you have never heard of before, such as Mitchell's team name, the San Miguel Beermen, which is a real professional basketball team located in the Philippines. All right, so for the Angle Awards show, let's get into what awards we're going to be discussing today. We are going to lead off with Trade of the Year. We have Waiver Pickup of the Year, Dispersal Team of the Year, Most Improved, Future Star, and we will finish with Team of the Year. For each of these categories, we are going to discuss the criteria of what we are judging based off of. We will list off each of the nominees that we had this for each category, and then Braxton, Mitchell, and I have already come to our votes of who the winner of each of these categories is going to be, and you will be awarded duly so in today's episode. Mitchell, as the reigning champion, before we get into this, any last words that you wanted to say on the league, or, you have the floor right now as the champion? Anything you wanted to add here?
Ooh, that's a lot of pressure. But for one, I'm looking forward to competing with you all again next year. I know there's going to be a lot of new stars that we're going to be hinting towards, who I expect will possibly be opponents for you and I, Andrew. We always look to contend every single year. And if we don't contend, we like to do that very short 1-year rebuild. So I don't know if that's in your plans, but I'm very excited to come across more challenges and a lot of foes along the way, especially because I always like to see new teams in the mix. So next year is going to be even tougher, and I'm for sure going to be looking forward to defending my title and going back to back.
Yeah, maybe a new rivalry will form, because I definitely had a rivalry with Blackwater this year because he beat me in the finals last year, but you beat me in the semifinals this year. So going up against you is going to be now even a bigger deal than you and I normally make it. Well, at least both times I've lost to the eventual champion, but getting pretty far.
Hey, that's an accomplishment, because like if you got through us, then you could have possibly been the champion, especially last year.
But it's only it's a marginal help to my own feelings, but it's at least at least something. Glad to have made it to at least the final four. But without further ado, Mitch, let's get into our first category, trade of the year. So for most of these categories, they're going to have a top three. I think only one of them has a top four, which are the final nominees, of course. Our criteria is a trade that occurred between April of 2025 to present day that was large scale, involved a clear winner on either one side or both sides. We're cool with win-win trades over here, and had the biggest impact on winning games. Here's the first trade I wanted to discuss. The Boston Celtics send Tyrese Halliburton, pick 14 in the 2025 NBA draft, which for us ended up being Colin Murray Boyles, a 2027 first-round pick, a 2026 second-round pick, and Luke Cornett in exchange for Drew Holiday and the rights to the number one overall pick, which did end up being Cooper Flagg. So talking about this really quickly, this was a trade that happened in exchange with Blackwater Bossing, who had both Flagg and Holiday. So obviously Blackwater did get burned on this deal shortly after it was made. This actually happened while last year's NBA playoffs were in progress. And then we all know Tyrese Halliburton tore his Achilles. But what we want to focus on here for this trade is Boston landing Cooper Flagg, obviously from a dynasty realm. Huge win getting an asset like that. He's comfortably in our top 7 dynasty ranks for points and 9 categories for the rebuilding specialized ranks that we make on Patreon. He's in the top 5. Huge deal. But in addition to that, Boston, who did make the playoffs and did eventually beat the team that he made this trade with, Blackwater Bossing, the previous defending champion, Cooper Flagg was a massive, massive part of that. Anything you wanted to add on this trade here, Mitch?
No, I think you hit the nail on the head here. Cooper Flagg is such an enticing prospect. And this was kind of during the time where Halliburton and Flagg were in a similar tier. This was before Hallie was injured, right? To your earlier mention. A couple of weeks later, Halliburton tore his ACL or Achilles in the NBA Finals. So, in retrospect, this was really like a top 5 asset for a top 10 asset at the time with Flagg, where Halliburton was actually probably seen as the more valuable player. But, Boston was like, hey, I want to start fresh. I want to start this league with a cornerstone that's 18 years old. He has his whole career ahead of him. I'm willing to overpay. And looking now, definitely paid off, right? Because you would not have received anywhere near even adding 2 future first-round picks on top of Halliburton for Cooper Flagg till this day, right?
Right.
But looking back, it was an overpay. So kudos to Boston for that foresight, which further then allowed him to beat Blackwater Bossing in the first round. So I think this is a huge win for Boston. But at the time, this was a big, big win for Blackwater Bossing, where he was just in asset accumulation mode after that Wemby trade, where we're going to shortly talk about very soon.
Let's move on to the next trade we want to discuss before we get to the last one here. This involves our own Braxton. His Charlotte team sent Keontae George, Franz Wagner, Karl Anthony Towns, and a second-round pick in exchange for LeBron, Day'Ron Sharpe, a first-round pick, and Luka Doncic. So Braxton's team had a great year. I believe he finished in the top 3, if I'm not mistaken. Top 5. Top 5. Okay,
seed,
yeah. So great year for Braxton. Luka was a big part of that. I feel the same way as him in a league where I had Luka, where in regards to fantasy playoffs, this crazy streak that Luka has been on happened like basically after week 1 of fantasy playoffs for us. So if you made it past that, then you obviously just rode Luka's coattails probably a pretty long ways. But if you didn't make it past that first week, which happened to me, And unfortunately happened to Braxton's team, then you just had to sit there and watch Luka drop 40 a night without benefiting you. But obviously, anytime you can get Luka in a dynasty setting, top 5 for us in our ranks, that's always a big accomplishment. LeBron James is obviously nothing to scoff at. He's great. Daron Sharp and a first-round pick, both valuable. I'm pretty sure he didn't. The only part of this that Braxton kept was Luka and LeBron. I most likely assuming he flipped Daron and that first. But for Chicago, which is the other team involved in this, he received, obviously a plethora of depth with Keontae Franz, Karl-Anthony Towns in a second. And Chicago had a pretty decent year as well. But he did, sacrifice the best asset in the deal, being Luka. At the time, obviously, I think I would say that Cat had some more value and Franz had some more value. Franz was hurt. Cat has kind of just underperformed this season for whatever reason, but he did get a huge boost out of Keontae. So perhaps it evens itself out here. This is definitely a big trade with a lot of moving pieces. And then if you don't have anything to add on this one, Mitch, we will move on to the last one, which involves your team.
Yeah, we can move on to the last one.
All right. The San Miguel Beerman. We did a full podcast episode with, this was the cover trade thumbnail of that episode. It broke the league. Mitchell, your Beerman received Victor Wembanyama in exchange for what eventually became Cooper Flagg, plus Amen Thompson, plus Matas Buzelis. We didn't get the massive breakout we wanted out of Amen. We did get a really good breakout out of Matas, and Cooper is actually even better than we expected him to be. But almost everything you can think of pales in comparison to Victor Wembanyama, especially in this setting where it's a 30-team league. So instead of, 10 guys rolling out for you each night with a full schedule on a 12-team league, you only have 6 rolling out there. So Wemby's impact gets magnified even more so in a league like this. And similar to the situation we talked about with Boston, you had to overpay at the time. Looking back on it, I think it's debatable, and if this is still enough for Wembanyama or not.
Still probably overpay, but...
You think so? I think it's a little debatable. It depends on what people think about Amen specifically. I think a lot of people are like, decently high on Matas, and obviously everybody loves Cooper. It's the Amen factor. There's some people will think it's an overpay because of Amen. Some people will look at him and be like, it's, decent value or maybe not even enough for Wemby. I'm not saying Amen's bad. He's still really good, top 25 asset. I think we just didn't see as big of a breakout as we wanted for him in particular. Right. Yeah. But Wemby, though, talk about his impact for you in playoffs.
Yeah, he was really just a cornerstone in almost every single category. And Andrew, I didn't have Embiid until the very last week when I needed him against a Jokic-led team, right? So I was running Victor Wembanyama. It's pretty much my only source of blocks. Yes, there's Jay Huff, but he was going in and out of the lineup with Zubac during the time. So with Wemby as my only center, nearly in like 15 minutes a night with Jay Huff, he still was enough to lock me down for blocks and rebounds, but also provide me those tertiary stats of like a wing player or of a point guard that really complements my guard heavy team. So with him being that cornerstone, he just made up so much ground for my weaknesses on a perimeter oriented team that I wouldn't have with even like a big man like Chet Holmgren, right? That also complements, but definitely not at the scale as a Wemby. And what really excites me about Wembanyama is that, yes, he's getting better every single year. He's only 22 years old. But now having him in the most important league for me and for you and for many others involved in this league, just having that number one asset emerging into his prime, I'm never going to be trading this guy because he's going to hopefully lead me to multiple titles, and we don't know the ceiling yet, right? I just mentioned he's 22 years old. He could go even higher. He's the only MVP candidate playing under 30 minutes a game. What happens when we scale him up to 33, 34? I mean, not to say he's going to play like 38 minutes a night like a Luka or like a SGA. I'm not saying that. But even if he moves from 28, 29 to 33, 34, that might be 30 points, 14 rebounds, 3.5 blocks, 5 assists. I mean, just talking about it, like the upside when he hits like 25 years old, 26 years old, man. And the crazy thing is with Wemby, I still have one more cheap year. So
That's
like
true.
this trade is not only like the entire year of or the entire lifeline of his career, but it's that magnified 2-year window where I could fully capitalize on his salary. And I
Yep.
think that's what makes it worth it for me building around him because now I can hold Embiid for another year without having to sell him cheap.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I mean, like I mentioned, it's a real salary league, and that rookie scale contract that Wembanyama is currently on gets magnified even more. And shout out to the owner of Dubai Basketball, HBB, sent me a graphic he made with Cloud showing basically a chain reaction of events that took place after this trade. There's like 10 plus trades that followed this one, and a chain reaction of events that led, following this trade that happened. It basically broke the league, and that is why it is the winner of trade of the year. So shout out to both San Miguel, you Mitchell, and Worth, the owner of Blackwater, for being on both ends of this trade. Worth only kept modest, like I said, set off a chain reaction of trades, both involving Cooper Flagum and Thompson, and then also this set off the championship path for the San Miguel Beermen. So congrats to you guys for trade of the year. Thank you to the other nominees. Mitchell, let's move on to waiver pickup of the year. So our first two categories are transaction-based. The next four after that are all going to be team-based. Waiver pickup of the year, here's our criteria. A waiver pickup, mind you, this is a 30-team league, so we don't have much to choose from here. So a waiver pickup that led to success for the team in season and or became good trade value, and the pickup will likely be a regular NBA contributor moving forward. First nominee, Alba Berlin added Dennis Jenkins. Our second nominee, Colossus Rhodes adds Jordan Goodwin. Our third nominee, the Houston Comets add Dylan Cardwell. And our fourth nominee, Sports Lisboa Benfica adds Luke Kennard. Mitchell, is there any of these players, whether it's, well, I can talk about Luke Kennard. I'm actually planning to, but would you, any of these other players that you would like to talk about here?
Yeah, I really like Jordan Goodwin
Mm-hmm.
for the Phoenix Suns. I love that pickup from Colossus only because he kind of matches the new tempo and play style of the Phoenix Suns now that they added Dylan Brooks and Jalen Green. They brought over that grit and intensity over to the Phoenix Suns from Houston, Ime Udoka's like mentality and whatnot. And Jordan Goodwin fits right into the second unit. He's had nights over the course of the season where he's grabbing over 10 rebounds a game because they love to play that small ball offense, either playing Oso Iguodaro at the 5 and like Mark Williams in minimum minutes. So Jordan Goodwin fills that void as kind of like that small ball. I don't want to say center, but like maybe like a power forward in a sense where he's like only 6'4", but he's going to grab you like 8 rebounds on a good night. And that's very rare to find, especially from the guard position. He's like a
Yeah.
mini Josh Hart in a way. If you can get that for free in a 30-team league, I love that, especially because he really fits that same direction that the Phoenix Suns are heading.
Absolutely. And like going on to Dennis Jenkins, who had some great spot minutes whenever Cade Cunningham was out of the lineup and earned himself a bigger role for Detroit. I think about this all the time. When he first got signed to the Pistons on a two-way, he was at the summer league that I most recently went to, and I basically brushed shoulders with him in the hallway, and I was like, I know that's somebody, but I can't remember who it is off the top of my head. And he was just walking around like with his backpack on, like he looked like just one of the fans. And then I looked up and it ended up being Dennis Jenkins. So that was my opportunity to meet him. Opportunity missed. But I really like his prospects moving forward. That was a great pickup by Berlin. Jenkins is still on his team. Luke Kennard, who is now on Brisbane, our most active trader. Kennard completely revitalized. Well, I mean, his value was okay in Atlanta, but it has spiked in Los Angeles. He is a huge help to Luka and LeBron and Reeves within this offensive system. I think, JJ Redick is obviously perfectly capable of drawing up plays that favor Kennard and knowing how to use him because they're basically the same player. And I really hope to see him back next year with, he's the perfect Luka and or LeBron complementary type of player, especially a Luka. You need shooters like Kennard. And then Dylan Cardwell, the defensive value that he's providing, in that rotation with him and Maxime Reynaud right now. We'll see what happens when Sabonis gets added, but I'm convinced that the three of them can work because I think at least two of them can always be on the floor with each other as well. For 9 category purposes, the defensive output is obviously something you really love to see, in addition to the eligibility to play both forward and center, at least on Fantrax, which is the platform we're on currently for this league. So with that being said, we've decided on our winner. And that's to you, Mark of Sports Ethos, the owner of the Houston Comets, for adding Dylan Cardwell, not only because he has become a successful piece towards winning, and because we think he will be a fairly good contributor to the NBA moving forward and fantasy moving forward, but also because Mark did trade Cardwell and he got a first-round pick out of it. So Mark got a first-round pick out of nothing. Congrats to you, Mark. You have won waiver pickup of the year for taking on Dylan Cardwell. All right.
Congrats, Mark.
Very good. Follow him on Sports Ethos if you don't already. All right. Let's now move on to our team-based awards. And we're first going to start off with Dispersal Team of the Year. So this is obviously an award that might not happen every year if we don't get, enough people leaving to do a dispersal draft. But we had 3 people leave last year, and we had 3 new teams: the Nelson Giants, the Boston Celtics, and Dubai Basketball. So those obviously are our 3 nominees for this category. Our criteria is, of course, the dispersal team with the most success in their first year. Mitchell, is there anything you wanted to add on any of these 3 teams before I reveal our winner?
Yeah, I think, these teams all did a very excellent job, really starting from coming in as a new owner into the league is not always an easy thing. A lot of them progressed a lot in terms of like resourcefulness, making the transactions they wanted to kind of build that baseline for their team moving forward. And one in particular beat the defending champ, hint, hint. So Andrew, can you tell me a little bit more about the Nelson Giants? Give them a quick shout out.
Nelson Giants, shout out to Ralph. He didn't make it into the league the first year, but was on the wait list. We contacted him when it was time, and he was able to get in. Was very happy to see that. He ended up tanking with his first year. So choosing to reset and rebuild, which is totally a viable strategy. Mitch turned it into winning a championship the year after tanking from our inaugural draft. So doing the same strategy from the dispersal draft is totally viable, and we're looking forward to see what Nelson can bring us maybe in the next year or two. On to Dubai. Dubai did make the playoffs this year, and that was largely carried by Kawhi Leonard, who had some great performances in the latter half of the fantasy season, and Denny Avdia, who was solid for all year. Then there comes Boston, who had kind of a strength in numbers approach, actually, with Cooper Flagg, OG Anunoby, Drew Holiday, those types of guys on that team. He was able to actually carve out a pretty nice year for himself. And this vote really, because it's based off success in year 1. So the vote really came down to Dubai versus Boston, because they are the 2 teams in this dispersal pool that did make the playoffs. And our winner is going to be the Boston Celtics. 1, because he was the higher seed for this playoff. So Dubai was 16th and Boston was 14th. So that alone is good. But Boston got a playoff win. Much against our expectations. We were probably too low on our expectations of Boston. We didn't take a close enough look at his schedule when we were doing our playoffs preview, and we didn't factor in a bunch of injuries surmounting for our previous defending champion. I love saying previous, by the way. Shout out to you, Worth. Previous defending champion, Blackwater Boston, coming down with some injuries at a very unfortunate time. So Boston won, knocked out the previous defending champ, and earned his buyback money for next year. So now next year is free for Boston. So here's our winner of Dispersal Team of the Year. Jolly J-Rod, shout out to you, dude. All right, next up, Most Improved. Our criteria is the team that made one of the biggest jumps from the middle of the first season. So we came out with a power rank in December of 2024. The end range of this time frame is the end of season pre-playoff power ranks that we did last month. So the team that made the biggest jump from then to now, but we also take into consideration the assets that that team had to work with. Here is each nominee and how much they moved up power rankings during that time frame. San Miguel Beerman moved from 26th to now 3rd overall. The PSV Red Lions moved from 30th to 13th overall. And the Hobart Chargers moved from 18th to 11th overall. All of these teams now within the top 15, now within the top half of the league. Only Hobart is the only team of this bunch that did make the playoffs last year. But PSV...
No, he didn't.
He didn't.
His pick turned into Cooper Flag.
Oh,
I had
that's
his
right.
pick.
I think I'm thinking of Brisbane, who was more of a lower seed last year. I'm pretty sure that's
yes, that was Brisbane.
Okay. Well, Ben did make playoffs this year and did get a win. So shout out to him. Shout out to Hobart. So that makes him obviously a big competitor for this criteria here. Mitchell, of course, your team. You're now the defending champion. So a huge accomplishment. However, you did have a good amount of assets to work with. You had your pre-planned first-year tank, but you came into this year. We talked about it last year. The catchphrase I had of there's serious beer brewing in San Miguel. You had the multitude of first-round picks, like $70 million in cap space in the upcoming year, and some guys that you were holding in your minor spots that we knew were going to be useful contributors once you decided to activate them. So you were working with some pieces. Hobart barely missed out on playoffs, now that I remember correctly. He had some pieces he's working with as well. But let's focus on PSV for a moment, who at halfway through the season last year was in dead last. Not even really identified as a tanker, but was one of those teams that was kind of in the middle, which is never really a place you want to be, and didn't really have great, what we thought previously, assets moving forward at the time. Is there anything you wanted to add on that, Mitch, before I reveal who the winner is?
Yeah, I mean, why don't you reveal the winner now, and then I can talk a little bit about the winner.
Well, the winner is the PSV Red Lions. And the reason why we made this decision is, yes, the San Miguel Beermen did a bigger jump within the power ranks, but PSV had less to work with. So moving from dead last to into the top 15 with less assets to work with is why you, PSV, shout out to you, Ignaz, are the winner of most improved for the season. Go ahead, Mitchell.
Yeah, and with PSV, he's largely building very, I want to say, organically versus through a lot of different transactions, trades, draft picks. He's taking the more patient approach. And a lot of his success, yes, of course, Devin Booker is great, right? Don't get me wrong. He's a top 15, top 20 asset. He's going to provide you with that value, first round value every single year, right? I think the big thing was Brandon Ingram turned into a real contributor this year, playing for a playoff contender with the Toronto Raptors, right? So if he's playing for a team looking to make a push for the playoffs, there's going to be more availability naturally, right? Versus the Pelicans, where they had their own pick at the time. They ended up shutting him down. I mean, they also traded Brandon Ingram to the Toronto Raptors, who the Raptors were still trying to tank their way at the end of the season. But this season, it was a new year. I think they're currently like in the top 6 right now in the Eastern Conference. Brandon Pajemski improving every single year. Jarris Walker has looked good for, this very depleted Indiana Pacers team. So like all of these things, and of course, Max Christie and your boy Sandro gradually, organically improved from year to year without him needing to make those transactions, right? So I think that's very important here in terms of like PSV's success, is that, he bet on these guys from the start, who weren't seen as very, I guess, valuable, universally or more sought after in terms of assets, but they turned and made their way into valuable assets. And, sometimes the patient approach is a viable approach. And PSV almost gave you a scare in the first round as a double-digit seed, especially because like come on, Malawach came into life because Mark Williams went out, and you guys are battling for blocks, right? Because both of you guys punted blocks, but his top draft pick from last year came to life when he was needed. Ultimately, he didn't win against you, but still, you were a contender. You were consistently in our top 5, which goes to show if he can give you quite a scare in the first round, maybe there's even more brighter things ahead for this PSV team.
Yeah, he beat me at 3 of my team's best strengths, free throws specifically. I'm a team that has Shea and Harden, and he beat me in free throws that week. And it came down to a category we both punted. It basically came down to Ryan Kalkbrenner versus Kamal Malawach. But what I did have on my side was Jalen Suggs, who added in those blocks as well. So blocks is the reason why I was able to move on. Like we said, he did give me a big scare. So shout out to you, Ignaz, PSV, going from at least power ranking dead last to now, in a pretty strong standing. All right, Mitchell, let's move on to Future Star. These are teams who did not make the playoffs this year that we expect to be better than at least a 14 to 16 seed next year. So, not barely skating into playoffs, but at least, pretty comfortably making playoffs and perhaps winning a matchup or two. Here's our nominees. The Los Angeles Lakers, shout out to you, Philly. The New York Knicks, shout out to our boys Josh and Sam from Point Made Basketball. Follow them if you don't. And the Toronto Raptors, shout out to our boy Slice. All right, Mitchell, I'm going to get into the winner right away here, and then we're going to talk about them. But of course, we'll talk about the honorable mentions a little bit here. The winner of Future Star is the Toronto Raptors. Let's focus on this roster and what our boy Slice is building here. This is who we expect to potentially be a problem for us next year, because what Slice was doing was taking advantage of injuries. He's tanking. He only has 1 first-round pick, but it is his first-round pick for this year, which he will get the benefit of from the tank that he had. But bringing in guys like Jaren Jackson Jr. after he got injured. He got Jason Tatum really early in the year after he got injured. He has DeJounte Murray as well. So he had those 2 Achilles tear guys. He acquired Jaren Jackson this year. Also acquired Josh Giddey in a Shaedon Sharpe related deal this year too. So we're now looking at a starting lineup for Toronto next year of Josh Giddey, DeJounte Murray, Benedict Mathurin, Jason Tatum, Jaren Jackson Jr., and DeAndre Ayton. Obviously, in a 30-team league, you can make a ton of noise with that. He needs a little more help on the bench, because all I'm really seeing on the bench is D'Lo and Schroeder, maybe Precious Achiuwa, Dalton Connect, and Jalen Wilson are there, I guess. But he does have his first-round pick coming in.
And that first-round pick is projected to be, I think, top 5 or top 6. Depending on how the lottery odds, play out.
So this could be Keaton Wagler on his bench next year.
Right. Or it could jump into the top 3, which makes it very interesting. So let's say he gets a top 3 pick. Does he divide it among multiple assets? Because I'm sure you can get a pretty good haul for an AJ Debinsa or a Cam Boozer, and that would really fill his bench with competitors, right? So he has a ton of options, even if that pick is top 5, like a Keaton Wagler or a Kingston Flemings or Darius Acuff or Caleb Wilson. I think if he moves that pick, this bench will be filled out. On top of that starting 6, this is probably a top 10 team. And even if he wanted to play it out a little bit, see, enjoy the draft process. Everyone loves evaluating new upcoming talent. Who's to say that pick won't be productive? This is one of the more, NBA ready classes where freshmen are performing at an astounding level in the NCAA tournament, overall in Division I, right? This is a very historic draft class. Who's to say they're not productive? This year's draft class was very great. VJ Edgecombe, Con Knipple. This draft class is apparently even better,
That's right.
This is why Toronto is are number one because they have a top 5 projected pick on top of these, certified talents like a Josh Giddey, Jaren Jackson, Jason Tatum, DeJounte Murray. Benedict Mathurin looks like that scoring punch that the Clippers need, right? And then Ayton, serviceable, but on a good contract. So this team is looking very promising.
Absolutely. A quick note on the Lakers. This is a kind of the opposite of what Toronto's doing. Toronto's very top heavy with star power. The Lakers are someone that we're a little nervous of in the future as more of like a strength in numbers approach. You're dealing with Trey Jones, Anthony Simons, Trey Johnson, RJ Barrett, Aaron Gordon, Jaime Jaquez. He has that star piece in Anthony Davis, but perhaps the reason why he missed out on winning the Future Star Award is because, AD is a less reliable piece than, for example, Toronto has Jason Tatum, a bit more reliable person to go for. But the Lakers do have some organic growth coming in the center position. He's drafted both Oso Ighodaro and Yannick Koenig-Niederhauser, and I think both of them are going to turn out to be useful for him. He's got Isaiah Collier on his team. His draft pick last year was Trey Johnson in regards to his lottery pick, and he's going to get another lottery pick this year. Not as good as his odds were last year, but maybe he'll get lucky. But that's someone that we really, think could be a concern as he's pretty much 12 deep, whereas Toronto is probably more 9 deep. And then on our boys at New York really quickly, Pascal Siakam is obviously the centerpiece, but they do have some interesting names like Jace Richardson, Jeremiah Fears, Nolan Trieri, Colin Murray-Boyles, and they do have 3 first-round picks incoming. So they're going to be a problem. I think it's going to be 4 first-round picks incoming. So they're going to be a problem, but I think it might be another year or 2 away. But I can see them probably being a nominee for this award again next year and maybe even winning it. So we definitely have our eyes on you guys too, New York. But for now, our winner is Toronto. Shout out to the other nominees. Let's get to our final category here, Mitch. Team of the year. Our criteria is these teams had outstanding success in drafts, trades, the regular season, and the postseason. The first nominee has to be our champion, the San Miguel Beermen. Second nominee, the Beijing Ducks. First in our power rankings currently. Now, the third nominee is our regular season first place holder, the Mexico City Capitanes. I'm going to get into it with our winner, which is the San Miguel Beermen, not only because you're the champion. Obviously, that's the biggest reason, but you are within the top 3 of power ranks currently. So we're going with the top 3 team here. We're going with the team that has Victor Wembanyama on it, and we're going with the team that is now our current defending champions. But let's talk really quickly about the other nominees. Beijing, Jokic-based team. He did make it to the final. He is our runner-up. I know the feeling, Beijing. I was there last year. Mitch, any words you want to say for your final opponent?
Yeah, Beijing, even though I was leading the, playoff matchup the entire time, you came up very close till the very end, right? The last day, I believe I was up 2% from the field and 1% from the free throw line. And the gap was very wide after the first 3 days. And you consistently crept up to me every single day leading into that final day on Sunday. So I want to give you a lot of props because this was not an easy matchup at all. With Jokic having those like 20-20-20 games, you are a very formidable opponent. And I look forward to facing you in the future.
Very good. Very good. I think, it's a good chance Beijing might stay number 1 in our power ranks the next time we do an update. We'll keep an eye on his offseason activities, but, this might be a Jokic versus Wemby type of league for maybe the next year or 2. That's what our finals was this year, and I can see it potentially happening again. And then, of course, I got to mention my boy Gabe for Mexico City. Great year, dude. First overall. And what I really want to focus on was you probably killed it the most for total waiver wire accumulation, both for silly season guys and guys that'll likely help moving forward. Mohamed Diawara, Jemai Mashak, Jameer Watkins, Spencer Jones. Excellent work off the waiver wire for a 30-team league. Great work, dude. And you did most of this without Walker Kessler. He only played 5 games for you. And then, obviously I know Lauri Markkanen's never going to play above 50 games. So even with that, even with those limitations, you got the big show out from Colin Gillespie. Cam Spencer. Najee Marshall was great for you. You have Evan Mobley on your squad now. This is an excellent top-tier squad. You also have Guy Santos, too. Great deadline pickup, preparing for the playoffs. That's why you also made it to the semifinals as well. So shout out to you, dude. Excellent team. Great year. Made it far. Just didn't end up being your year. And I know that feeling. I made it just as far. And it sucks, but Mitchell, you are the champion, and nothing sucks for you right now. Any last words before we close out?
Yeah, I want to give, all the nominees for Team of the Year a major shout out, because it's not easy to, be the sole winner of a 30-team league. This is over twice the size of a standard 12-team league, and there can only be one winner, and maybe next year is your year. Like, I don't say that in kind of a cocky way. I say that because I respect both of your teams, how you built them. A lot about fantasy basketball, yes, is roster building, but it's also the luck of the schedule and luck of injuries. And it may not have been your year this year, but I really believe that you are in that top tier of this league, and I look forward to competing with you in the future.
Yes, and what I want to do is give a shout out to all current 30 members of the Angle Dynasty League. Thank you so much for participating. Thank you for your activity. We would, of course, love to have you back. If you choose to leave us, we're sad to see you go, but we, of course, thank you so much for participating. So that will do it for us today. Subscribe to the channel if you are new. We will always bring you content on the league itself, and then tons of content on fantasy and dynasty basketball. Again, we'll have a dynasty rank update coming soon. Mitchell and I will start dropping some rookie content for you pretty soon as draft season rolls around. We have a lot coming to you guys. So thank you for tuning in today, and we'll see you all next time.